Greetings. I'm Matthew Neal, the Christian Boomer, an ordained Baptist preacher and lifelong Bible student. I've also been a Bible teacher of various ages and in many capacities since I was a teenager. Now I teach through this podcast. Together we examine God's Word chapter by chapter, and my prayer is that you will be encouraged to dig deeper into your own personal Bible study. I rely on the support of my listeners, so what you can do to help my ministry is threefold. First, share these videos with as many other people as possible. Second, like and subscribe. And the third is support this podcast with monthly financial support. Now, with the opening greeting and commercial out of the way, let's get into today's lesson. All right, now, let's talk about the Garden of Eden. Here's the question. If the world was a peaceful paradise, why did God create a special garden, and through whatever means were used, the Bible doesn't tell us, it just simply says that God placed man in the garden. Now, whether after creating man, he compelled him to go to the garden, or however he did it, he put man in the garden. It was a special place that God had created for him. So, here's my question. Did God, theologians, and the whole time I was brought up, we were brought up to believe that the world was this wonderful paradise, perfect. Carnivores didn't eat meat. There was no killing. There was no death. None of that. Plants didn't die. And my question is that the case? Was the world created as a paradise? Or was it simply that God was pleased with the fact that he had created a world that was in perfect balance with itself? Everything about it. The balance of nature. You see, I take the view, even today, that there really is no such thing as a natural disaster. The problem is we as humans somehow think that the world should order itself to what we want. So we build cities in floodplains and then get upset when our cities get flooded. We build cities in below sea level. Hello, New Orleans. You build cities below sea level. You build up levees to try to keep the Gulf of Mexico out. And then along comes a hurricane, overwhelms those man-made levees, and we're supposed to, blame nature, blame God? Maybe we shouldn't be building cities where disaster is going to likely strike. I don't know. That's just my thought. So anyway, we need to explore the cause and its effects before we get to chapter 3. Carnivores are built to eat meat, not graze. And yet in nature, generally, unless something has gone wrong, which would be I would argue, the result of sin, they only kill for food or when they're threatened. They don't just willy-nilly slaughter. In fact, down in the Everglades, alligators will actually, during the dry season, they'll actually clear out pond areas and all of the nearby animals come there to drink water without fear. So we need to keep that in mind and ask ourselves, which is it? And I realize that's kind of different than the Orthodox view, but did God create a paradise, or did he simply create a world that was in balance? If that's the case, then creating the garden for Adam, first of all, it was protection from outside danger. It was a place of belonging. It was a place that gave Adam purpose, an area that he could work in, and gave him a job to care for the garden. And it was a place of communion. And by that I mean it was a place where he could commune with his Creator, the one above him. We see that it was a place of communion with creation, as we see God causing the animals to come, and he named them. So it was a place of communion with nature and with the other animals who were below him intellectually and as far as the order that God had established. So he was not only in God's representative to rule over them, but also to care for them. And then finally, in the end, when we get to the last part, we'll see it was a place for him to commune and fellowship with his helpmate, the one who was his equal and his completion. And then next we see that there were two trees. One represented self-will and death, and the other tree represented obedience and life. Now, I'll say too much is made over what these trees were, and I think that's a distraction. I'm not even sure that the tree of the knowledge of good and evil actually imparted the knowledge of good and evil, a knowledge that they did not have. Certainly, Adam had enough moral knowledge to know that if God said don't do something, he shouldn't do it. And we'll see that in chapter 3. He already had that knowledge of if you're told no, that means no. Don't do whatever that action is. And even in Romans chapter 5, I believe it is, Paul says that sin was in the world, but where there's no knowledge of sin, it's not imputed. So it very well may be that God had just simply, God's moral law already existed, but God had only set one thing: don't eat the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. You can eat the tree of life, which has always intrigued me, that Adam did not eat of the tree of life, but he did eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. That's always intrigued me. So God had set this here as a test of obedience. It was the one way through his obedience that man could show his love and devotion to his Creator. And the other part of that is, it was not an egregious command. It wasn't something difficult. It was just simply, don't eat of that tree. That one tree, don't eat it. And then we see the naming of the animals. As Adam saw animals lesser than himself, all with mates, it helped him understand his need for a mate. And then naming something establishes ownership and builds a sense of responsibility. So those are a couple of possible reasons why this is in the Bible was, like I said, it showed Adam his need of a mate because he saw all of these other animals had partners and he didn't. And God had already said, it's not good for the man to be alone. I'll make a helpmeet for him. That had come earlier in the chapter. Now we see God showing Adam his need for a helper. Up until this time, Adam may not have felt that way. So then the Bible tells us that God caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam, and he took a rib and closed up his side, and from that rib he made Eve. And we will pick that up in our final section as we close out chapter 2 in the next lesson. We will continue our studies in the next episode. My hope and prayer is that I can be a help to you in your own study of scriptures, and my goal is to keep things simple and useful while giving you a scriptural foundation to build your faith. There's an old saying in the ministry, the water of life is free, but the pipeline costs plenty. For this ministry to continue and grow, I need your help. Of course, prayer is important, but there are some practical things you can do as well. You can hit the like and subscribe buttons, which will influence the algorithms and help. Sharing these videos with friends, families, and online acquaintances will also expand the ministry. The final thing you can do is financial support. By clicking the PayPal link in the description, you can become a one-time or a monthly supporter at one of the suggested amounts or fill in your own. Again, thank you for watching and listening, and until next time, remember Joshua 1:8.